So I want to talk about my favorite open category.
Open bike, full tilt.
Literally no CC limit, whatever you want to get. If I was going to get again, I don't want to say price no object because I'm excluding the homologation specials because only I think 500 souls in the whole world are going to get one of those.
Okay.
So I'll take those out for a
Maybe we
second.
should circle back to a no holds barred question later on.
Okay.
So let's do a reasonable open bike.
So if I was going to go get a bike and I was like, oh man, I want to go do track days and I want the fastest thing out there, or maybe I want to dip my toe into club racing and see what that's like. I think the bike right now that I would go get, because I think it's the most turnkey open bike that's the fastest
I'm really curious
thing.
because I have the one I think is you would probably choose.
Yeah, and I'll get to that part too. I actually think if you want the one that's like basically ready to go when you buy it, it's the BMW S1000.
I knew you were going to pick the S1000RR.
Yeah, it is just the most. Pick it up from the dealer, throw it in your truck, go to the track, and it is going to be an absolute monster.
Oh, it's a weapon. We see them all the time.
Yeah.
People show up who are good riders, not great riders, but they're good riders, and they'll be keeping up with great riders.
It is a phenomenal machine. The technology on them is amazing. My favorite story about BMW, when their very first version of the S1000 that they came out with, which...
You and I test rode that. Do
Yes.
you remember that?
Yeah, I got
it was
to
like
ride
the very first version. We were given one to test.
And it was like this like acid yellow green color.
I kind of like the color. It had the two different headlights.
Had the goofy winking headlight.
I loved the two different headlights.
But I remember riding on the track, and this was a brand new bike to all of us, and I was like, expletives. Like, this is so much fast for a production bike that's not tuned at all, has a catalytic converter on it.
Well, don't they have like it has to have so many miles on it before they'll even unlock the red line?
Yeah, so ours were all unlocked. They broke them in or whatever, so they were all unlocked. It was a missile. It was insanely fast for a production bike. But my favorite part about it was when they first got them, I remember them going to a fairly prominent engine builder that does Moto America race engines.
I remember.
And he pulled the thing apart. The first one he got his hands on immediately, takes it out, pulls the thing apart, looks at the head, checks it out with the team, and then they put it all back together and they're like, I don't think there's much for us to do here. Like, it was already beautifully polished inside, and he's like, I don't think we're gonna make it any better. It's probably good to go.
Don't you think
and they put the head back together?
Extremely cool that the company that made its mark making big lerpy derpy telelever adventure bikes just decided one day we're gonna make a super bike, and the freaking S1000RR shows up and just put the world on its ear.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
and it's still an amazing thing. And I've never owned one, ironically. Like, I love the bikes. I've never actually owned one. It absolutely did that from a production perspective, like a showroom perspective. I think it is the most capable thing that you buy right off the showroom right now. Now, when a lot of people will point to World Superbike or other places and like, oh, look, see, it's not as good as the Ducati. It's not as good as the whatever. The worlds apart the production bike is from the World Superbike.
Yeah, I don't know if many people recognize that there is, even the homologated specials, there's still a pretty big gap between what's on the grid at World Superbike and what you're buying, right? Yeah. Like, do you remember like our friend Shane, he got the homologated Ducati to race, but it was actually not the same frame. It wasn't a steel trellis frame. It was like an overbore aluminum trellis frame that looked like the steel. But like, so from a glance, you're like, oh yeah, it's the same thing. But that frame by itself was probably 20 grand.
Right.
You know?
There's all kinds of that sort of stuff that like, you just can't look at World Superbike and go like, oh, well, I'll buy the one that's on the podium. Like, sure, if you like it, buy the one that's on the podium because it's probably a great bike, full stop anyway. But don't think that what you're buying is that thing.
Yeah, we're racing nerds, and we will absolutely, like, whatever's winning on Sunday, I'm going to be enticed to buy. Why have you never owned an S1000RR? Because that seems totally the bike you would get.
Maybe I will someday. It's just never... So part of the problem when you go racing, it's the reason why, as much as I love Ducatis, Mr. Ducati, but why you don't see almost any Ducatis at a club race is because everything that's a Ducati, if you want to go club racing, just assume everything costs about 2 to 3 times as much.
I would never race a Ducati. I own several of them.
Expensive.
I will tell you flat out, I wouldn't race them.
That's why most guys are on Japanese bikes and things like that. Yeah.
If I was to race if I were to race super bikes, I'd get the Honda. I'd get the CBR 1000.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it would,
very cool bike.
Or the ZX10. The ZX10, I think, is also incredibly capable. I don't gel that well with the R1s, even though I really like them. I really want to like them every time I ride them. I don't gel with them. Same thing with the R6. They just didn't work for me.
Yep.
But
yes, and some of those are like a track bike or a race bike, especially. It's a tool.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to love the bike if it works how it needs to, and ideally, you don't even think about the bike. That's ideal.
Well, yeah, you want it to be, I think the term is transparent, right?
You don't even think about the thing. Yeah.
You raced a CBR 600 that was a former, it was an Ulrich bike, wasn't it?
A Team Hammer bike, yep.
It was a Team Hammer bike, right? So, Chris
Ulrich
built it up,
team,
right?
Yeah.
And what were your thoughts on that thing? Because you didn't keep it for very long. It was one of my favorites of your...
So most of the time, my race bikes last about 2 years, and then I'll sell it and get the next thing. It was, and to this day, still probably the best front end on a bike I've ever had. I felt like, we're totally off subject now, but I felt like with that CBR 600 coming into corners, you could get away with murder. You could be absolutely reckless with how late you could go to the brakes, and it would just stop and it would turn, and it just didn't care. You could do whatever you wanted on the front end on that bike. It felt almost invincible on that thing.
I remember riding yours, and I remember at the time that you had yours, I did a thing with Continental where they flew me down to their test track down in Uvalde, Texas, and they had basically every bike in the fleet all on the same tires, and they did this so you could see how their tires performed on different bikes. And I remember jumping from the Gixxer 600 at the time, the R6, the CBR, like across the gamut. And as soon as I got on the CBR 600, I was instantly turning quick laps.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know they were there to make me like look at the tires and test their tires and whatever, but it really cemented to me that CBR, like, it wasn't the most exciting thing. Everybody kind of overlooked it. But it was the one I kept trying to grab the keys for.
So the current CBR. So this is the unfortunate reality of modern sport bikes, especially middleweights. The current CBR, it effectively came out in 2008.
Well, yeah, like
it's not really been substantially updated since 2008, right? So almost we're getting near on 20 years now without a significant update, a new chassis, nothing. It is still so good. It is such a good bike. And I could probably gush about the CBR 600 for like 30 minutes on all the clever little tech bits that it still has that still nobody else is doing.
Didn't they do that ProLink rear suspension or something like that?
I think the ProLink is really clever. It came from MotoGP.
Yeah.
That was derived from that RC211 their first V5. It's a clever system. The shock basically doesn't mount to the frame anywhere.
Which is insane when you look at it. You start looking at it, you're like...
Yeah, you look at it, you're like, what am I seeing exactly?
Something seems wrong.
Why is it? Yeah. It mounts to the top of the swing arm, sits inside the swing arm, and then mounts to the linkage on the bottom, which then it connects to the frame, right?
Which is so...
Clever little idea.
Yeah.
It does... The trade-off... And in fact, they've gone away from the unit ProLink on the current CBR 1000, the RRR, whatever. I think it does create more unsprung mass, right? So you are dealing with that situation, but it meant that the frame wasn't compromised by having an extra spar for the top of the shock to mount to. And so the fuel tank drops like into the bike vertically.
Right.
It's very centralized. It's a really clever little system. Anyway, back to the BMW. So I'll wrap up. I think it is still the best open bike you can go get. If you just want something off the showroom that you can take straight to a track day and have an absolute riot, I think you'd be pretty hard pressed. I mean, all the open bikes are good. That BMW is pretty spectacular.
Well, their technology package, I think, is also just one step ahead of everybody else's as well.
Yeah.
It's not a bike that really excites me or draws my eye in an emotional way, but you can't deny how just good it is.
Yeah.